everyone. Welcome to the Align Your Life show. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Jenny Parks. I am a health and prosperity professional, integrative nutrition coach, and wellness advocate. This is the Align Your Life show, which is all about empowering individuals towards living a life of enrichment. Heather Bischoff is back this week, third Tuesday of every month. Heather is here with us. Heather is the owner for... Oh my God, here we go again. I'm just going to have to stop and laugh at it because it's not stopping. My mouth is not working today. Heather is the owner of Dragonfly Direction, speaker, mentor, and she offers leadership development for women in small companies. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm excited to be here.
Yay, me too. Today we're talking about overcoming adversity. And one of my favorite quotes about adversity comes from Ann Curry, I believe. I heard it for the first time several years ago and it just struck a chord with me. It is only with adversity that we even have a chance at greatness. Adversity is your chance. And that speaks volumes to me because I think sometimes we get so really just buried in the hopelessness and helplessness of a situation or a circumstance or something that's been ongoing in our life, something that we don't know anything different from, that it can be really challenging and tough to even see that there are a million other different ways that we can approach something. You have an awesome project right now, which is really what segued us into this topic about adversity. Your book project, From Teen Mom to CEO. That just launched last week?
It launched probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yes. So it is my very first book project. I'm very excited about it. It's taken me a very long time to get here.
So we need to add author to your lineup here.
Yes, I'm very excited about it. I wrote the book at least 10 years ago, and it just took me a long time to kind of come to terms with releasing it and the outcomes and what that's going to do. But what I'm so excited about is that I am a teen mom, and now I'm a CEO of my own company, which is pretty exciting. The reason why I'm doing a GoFundMe for the project is because this is my memoir of just kind of overcoming lots of adversity in my life. And it just doesn't feel right to receive monetary funds from it. So what I'm doing with the book, and the reason why I'm doing the GoFundMe, is because 100% of the proceeds from the book will always go to nonprofit organizations that help teen moms and people that have experienced domestic and sexual violence so that they can find self-sufficiency. So I will never make any money off of this book. It's just really important that it go back out to organizations that are helping other people overcome adversity. Beautiful. And so for those that aren't familiar with GoFundMe, what exactly is that? Yes, so it is a crowdfunding, so to speak. I don't really know what you would call it, campaign, I guess. Yeah. So you could go to GoFundMe.com/Dragonfly Direction, or you can just do Teen Mom to CEO book project, and that's how you can find it. We are almost to our halfway mark, and so that's very exciting. I'm hoping to get to the full, what we're raising is $3,119.
Wow, that's an odd number. You'll have to explain that, but go ahead.
Yes. So, so I'm hoping to have all of the funds raised by the end of March.
Fantastic. And it looks like you're on track to have that happen.
Yes.
So very exciting.
Yes, very exciting. It's very overwhelming to see the community support because it very much is a community project.
So I know you've been through a lot of adversity in your life. The teen mom is one of the situations, and you mentioned some of the others. So as you sit here today looking back on all of that, do you think that there's ever a point when you're not overcoming adversity? Do you think it just comes and goes in different...
I think that's a great question.
Limitations.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great question. For a long time, I really didn't think there was a time where adversity was such a big part of my life for a really long time. And I finally am at a point where I don't feel that anymore, which I'm very grateful for. So, I think it's a process of, because you face adversity and circumstances, and there's always backlash, there's always healing, there's always releases that need to happen, and those things don't typically happen overnight. Therefore, it takes a while to kind of process and go through your process in your time to really understand and process and deal with things, and it's going to be unique and different for everyone.
And that's part of what you really assist people with too in your business, which obviously the adversity that you went through has led you to really fulfilling your passion in life and what it is that you're called to do, and you're doing that in your business among other things. Well, I think that's the thing that doesn't really get talked about is, and I mentioned this on the show last week too, that a lot of people know the glory of someone's success or of someone's where they're at in their life at this moment in time, but they don't really know the story and they don't really know what that person has gone through to overcome those things. What are some things that stand out to you, some turning points maybe, that where you were just in that hole, dug so deep, but you were able to see the light and grasp onto something?
Well, it's funny that you would ask that because it's definitely bigger than me. I can say that. Through everything that I've, come through, I just have always felt like I couldn't really understand it. I just knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, even though it may have seemed very dim and very far away at times. For me, I think the biggest turning point for me was becoming a teen mom.
And how old were you?
I was 16.
Wow.
So, I mean, in one moment, I felt like all of the doors closed. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? And there was not a lot of support.
Right.
And it's interesting because just in my research of, the book and looking at different organizations that I really want to support, teen moms are still in our society pretty invisible. And I can remember going to the grocery store with my son when I was 17 and people just didn't want to acknowledge me as his mom. It was his older sister or, his aunt or something other than like, don't be his mom. And it's still very much that way today. And, just all sorts of places I would go. And it was very clear by people's body language and their actions that I was not welcome there.
And that does a lot to the soul.
Oh
to
my
the
gosh.
human soul.
Yes.
Yeah, so not just what you see on the surface or how it feels in the moment, but those are things that stick with you for a long time and that you carry into other life situations and carry forward with you that can hold you back or, in your case, catapult you forward.
Absolutely.
But it didn't happen instantly.
No, it didn't happen instantly. And, I'm so grateful for my husband because, he was there to really help pick up some pieces. Once my parents kind of got their minds wrapped around everything, they did the very best that they could to support me and my son as well. So, it was just one of those things where I really kind of had to look at myself in the mirror and just be like, are you willing to accept your circumstances for where they are? And if you are you willing to accept the outcome of that? And if you're not, what are you willing to do about it?
You've talked a little bit on the show about how you grew up, middle class, and where did you grow up again?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, rural Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So not a big flashy home.
No.
Not a lot of money in the family.
Right.
Of course, you had a roof over your head and then things like the basic necessities. But there was something inside of you that always wanted more, even before you became pregnant at 16.
Yes.
So when you do have that desire and you grow up the way that you do, not really probably knowing how, just knowing that someday, my life's going to be different. And then it probably feels like a big door slammed shut right in your face, finding out that you're going to have a baby all of a sudden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everything that I wanted to, set out to accomplish and achieve already seemed like it was a really big feat without having a, child. And so finding out that I was pregnant, it made it seem even more impossible, but yet it made my drive that much stronger because I just realized, I have a great gift to empower the next generation, and that's my legacy. And that to me was so much more important of bringing somebody in, being responsible, showing them what it's like to have what I wasn't able to have for lots of different reasons, and to really be able to help that person get their best foot forward.
Now, adversity comes in so many different shapes and sizes. And, it's not just being a teen mom at 16 or going through some of the other situations that you mentioned earlier. It can be a woman in their 50s who doesn't know what their passion in life is. It can be losing a job. There are so many. It can be looking at your bank account and having no money in it.
Right.
There are a lot. Being in a relationship that you don't feel that excited about anymore. Just so many different situations and scenarios. But I think the common theme is that we are the common denominator in all of that. So
Absolutely.
When you can see that, it really does shift a perspective of where's the power, and the power is inside of you.
Exactly. Yeah, it would be just as easy for me to accept my situation as it was and not do anything about it and just kind of go with the flow of what other people expected. And I think, we face that all the time. When I work with clients, I see that all the time. And it is very many of those things. It's dealing with things that they took with them into adulthood from childhood, from their parents. It's wanting to have a different job, not feeling fulfilled in their career. It's those people who from the outside in everything looks perfect, but from the inside out they just want somebody to hear them and see them. And that is, it's kind of like this deep dark secret that no one wants to talk about because they're shamed. They feel like I shouldn't complain about this. I should be okay. Like, I have a good job and I have a house and I have, a car or two and we have all sorts of stuff. But, adversity is also something that I think a lot of times we struggle very secretively.
Absolutely. So many people do. And I think everybody really just wants to be validated in some way as well from another human being.
Yes.
We can validate ourselves all we want on the inside. Sometimes we don't even believe it when we're doing it. And sometimes we receive a lot of validation in our job, in our successful career, or something like that. But I think receiving that validation from another human being, specifically someone who's been there or who can relate, is huge for people.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a big difference because, I can remember I was much older when I started. I mean, there were no other teen moms that I really knew or associated with, and there were a lot of things that I had to sacrifice and do differently, and the path that was laid out, before me, that's laid out before everybody in society, it was just not the path that was going to work for me. So, just kind of doing that. And I can remember just being around people finally when I was in my early 20s who could understand. And all of a sudden I realized, wow, I'm really not that unique. Up until that point, I did think like, people just wouldn't understand but people do understand if we give them the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because we do tell ourselves stories about other people always. But if you ever just have an in-depth conversation with a stranger on the street, you would be amazed at what you would find out and the layers that, their mask is covering because everybody's got a mask on, whether, most of the time anyways, whether they want to admit it or not. And there is a commonality there when you can just have a conversation with someone and see that they've gone through things too and that none of us are alone in any of that. We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll continue talking to Heather about adversity. Be right back.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Align Your Life show, here with Heaher Bischoff of Dragonfly Direction, and we're talking about overcoming adversity. We're also talking about Heather's awesome project from Teen Mom to CEO, her GoFundMe project. Before we go on, where can people find that if they want to donate or just check it out and see what it's all about?
Yeah, well, you can definitely go to GoFundMe, just www.gofundme.com/Dragonfly Direction, all one sentence. You can also go to my website, which is www.dragonflydirection.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Heaher Bischoff, or I believe it's on the Facebook page Dragonfly Direction as well. There's an awesome video that you can watch that a student made for me that I would encourage you to, even just check that out because it's pretty cool.
He's pretty talented. That's a
He
great
is,
video.
yes.
Awesome. So, looking back now on your life, where you are today, are you able to see how some of the things that you went through are serving a purpose now? And we touched on that a little bit earlier, but hindsight is always 20/20, as we say. And
Yeah.
even maybe some of the times when it just felt like you were never going to move on from this. I don't know. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I think for me, and I don't know if this is different or not about me, but there was always something in me from the time that I was a child, experiencing some of the things I experienced all the way through, that I always just felt like, even though this really sucks, there's something useful about this. And the term that I've always used is I just learned at a very young age how to make lemonade out of lemons. Because I felt like higher powers, whatever you believe, can use everything. And while I didn't always understand it, I absolutely understand it now. Being an entrepreneur, as you know, is not the easiest thing in the world to do or be. It's a lot of hard work, and I learned how to do that hard work through my journey. And I don't know that I would have been able to really persevere had I not had to experience some of the things that I have experienced, because they've made me really work hard for what I want and really understand my why and understand what legacy is truly and the impact of it.
Yeah, the word determination comes to mind when you're talking about becoming an entrepreneur or being a teen mom. I mean, again, it doesn't matter what the situation is. It is determination, because you are going to be knocked down quite a bit. But it's just knowing that that's going to happen and getting up anyways, right?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, as an entrepreneur, it's one of those things, or even in business, in my corporate work that I do, it's not always easy, and it doesn't just lay out, beautifully for me. There's a lot of tough decisions that need to be made. There's a lot of things that need to take place in a specific order, and it's having the patience, the perseverance, and the determination to get the results that you're looking for.
You mentioned your why and holding on to that throughout it all. That changes over time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So how do you roll with the changes? Because sometimes I think that can be the most confusing part for people, because it's like, oh, today this is what I'm going to do. I'm determined. And then, oh, things start to unfold. And now it's like, oh, but look at that over there. That looks fun. Now I want to do that. Oh, look at that over there. And so, have you always just had one strong why? Has it been a lot of different whys? Has it changed over time?
I have always had one very strong why. I didn't really understand it in the beginning. I understand it much clearer now. And it may not make sense to anybody, but it makes sense to me. But my why, I remember, and I think I've shared this on the show in the past, when I first started my dragonfly journey, I attended a telesummit with Stiletto Network. I heard a speaker on there, and she was talking about fear, and I really just wanted to hear her. And she made a comment, a quote, whatever, that just really resonated with me and really helped me to understand my why even more. The quote that she said is, "Who is your fear going to keep you from helping?" And that just struck such a chord with me that I literally couldn't, I was so angry that she said that. And I wasn't angry at her, I was more angry at myself, because I had put so many things off because I was afraid. Because, sharing my story, a story like this, makes you very vulnerable. And not everyone will understand it, and not everyone will understand how I've come through what I've come through. And that's okay, because my why is that it's not about me. It's never been about me, and all of the success that I experience, everything that I've come through, is kind of, it comes through me. I'm just a vessel. I'm just here to show up, and I'm willing to share my story. I'm willing to do that if it helps another person, and I kind of I remember when I first started in my corporate career, I was doing something, coordinating something, and just feeling really frustrated, and my husband said, if you just change one life, then you've been successful. And it's kind of like, if you make that one ripple in the water, if you change that one life, then, isn't that amazing? Isn't that awesome to just do it for one?
And you just never know how the ripple will continue from there. And oftentimes you're helping so many people and you have no earthly idea.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was talking to our mutual friend, Lori Sparks, the other day, and she was talking about, we were having this conversation about the masks that people wear and sharing our story and just being vulnerable. And that's something that I personally have never been good at, and still am not the greatest, but it's something that I've really worked on. And it's really scary, but it's at the same time, again, you go back to when you're having those conversations with people, when you're understanding people's stories, when you're hearing them tell you things that they've gone through, it lifts you up to hear. It's so inspirational to hear someone else share something that has touched their life so deeply, or something that they've overcome, but you learn something from it too. And to not share this stuff with people, to me is it's selfish in some ways.
No, that's exactly the word that I was thinking.
Yeah,
I mean, it is selfish in some ways. And, at the same time, I think that, you have to meet people where they are.
Sure.
Because not everyone is ready to be vulnerable and to share some of those things. And they're still working through them and may not even realize it. I mean, that happens all the time. When I'm working with clients, I definitely, I'll find that nerve. And sometimes they're ready to explore it and sometimes they're not. And it's okay, because there's no right or wrong reason. It's a journey. It's more about the journey than the destination.
For those that are familiar with Abraham Hicks, I know you are, I was listening to something that she had on YouTube recently, and she's talking about how our emotions and our feelings are our compass. It's almost like our Siri in the car. When we put the address in and she tells us where to go, that's what our emotions are doing. And so she's talking about when you're sad, when you're depressed, and how awful that feels, and how life-sucking that can be, and how hopeless that can feel.
Oh, yeah.
And how it can be really, really challenging to even see or even consider in your mind how to remove yourself from feeling like that. But that is a compass telling you that you're off path. And it's helping you to know exactly what you don't want in your life.
Right.
Because now you know what you do want.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that you can understand
how
that
I think
feels.
that I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think this is really important. One of the things that took me a very long time to learn is that no matter what adversity, circumstances, challenges you're facing, there are always options. And for a long time, I didn't realize that even I had options. And now I'm finally getting to that point where, like, oh my gosh, like I had options. And I think sometimes we get so focused on the situation that, was before us.
Yes.
That we totally forget that there are options. There are other options. And even if you just have one person that can support you or help you see that there are other options, there's so much value in that, because there are always options.
Always. And that's a great point, because we get so cloaked in that feeling, and it gets such a hold on us. Or we start to tell ourselves a story about, well, this is what they're probably thinking, or I could never do, whatever the story is.
Right.
That's not even happening. So
right. It's
true. You're right to say, just to have someone to support you is so so beneficial in so many ways. She also talks about how great it is when your feelings move from that sadness or that depression to just anger, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I would always be the girl who didn't want to be angry. I wanted to be the nice girl. I didn't want to be the mean girl. I didn't want to be angry. I wanted to please everyone. I thought that anger was a bad thing. And
that's what you were taught.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's something that I've had support in my life to work through, is that you have to get angry sometimes. And you have to get that out of your body too,
Right.
because it causes a lot of dis-ease in your body and in your physical health as well. It's where a lot of disease comes from. And but she's talking about how the anger is fuel, really, how it can really fuel you in the right direction. And once you use that to your benefit, instead of demeaning yourself over feeling that way, everything changes. The power shifts, and you start to move into that joyful, happy space more and more and more and more and more, and that momentum starts to pick up, and then that sadness and depression stuff is just a distant memory.
Absolutely. And there's two types of anger. There's the anger of the 2-year-old I didn't get my way anger, and then there's the anger of there was an injustice done. Either there was an injustice done to me or to someone else, and and it's passionate anger. It's anger that comes out of care and concern for another, versus the anger of, I didn't get ice cream today and I really wanted it. I mean, there's a difference, and and it's a natural human emotion. It's a function that we all need to express and feel in a healthy way.
Such a great point. We are winding down on time, so let's tell everybody again where they can find the GoFundMe project.
Yes, Teen Mom to CEO GoFundMe project. It's just gofundme.com/Dragonfly Direction. You can find it on the Facebook page, Dragonfly Direction, my Facebook page, or my website, dragonflydirection.com.
And do you have any events coming up? Anything special in the near future?
We're getting ready to launch Getaway Camp. And so Getaway Camp is an amazing weekend for busy women who want to break free. That will be Labor Day weekend in Asheville, North Carolina.
Awesome.
Yes.
Labor Day weekend?
Yes.
Very cool. And so they can go to your website for more information on
Absolutely.
that. Fantastic. Coming up in Noblesville, April 2nd and 3rd, Good Journeys here in Noblesville is having their Health and Psychic Fair Expo. I'll be speaking on Sunday at noon, Cleanse Your Body, Cleanse Your Soul, and the connection between physical health and soulful health. And there'll also be vendors all day, both days. So come check it out. It's a really cool event. Indie Holistic Hub has a Wellness Fest coming up June 25th. So no concrete details on that, but mark your calendars. That will be awesome as well. And there's also an Indie Holistic Hub social gathering on Thursday. It happens once a month. It's open to the public. Practitioners, holistic practitioners come together, and people who are just maybe curious or want to meet some new practitioners or just really learn what the Holistic Hub is all about. You can show up and mingle with everybody, all of the wonderful people at the Hub. That's 6:30, I believe. I know it's this Thursday, and I know it's at Mo and Johnny's in Broad Ripple, but you can go to the indieholistichub.com website to find out more about that. Find me on Facebook. I'd love to connect there. Feel free to email me, jennyparks@alignyourlifewellness.com, the longest email ever. And thank you so much for being here, and thank you to Jim Wofford and Logan Street Signs and Banners for having us here each week. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next Tuesday.